Once again, we gather to address the human problem, the Alien Council leader said, his tone dark and heavy with concern. The assembly hall hummed with low, anxious murmurs, every delegate present aware of the matter at hand. Humanity. The unpredictable, resilient species from a small blue planet on the fringes of the galaxy. They were both a curiosity and a terror, a race like no other, feared by nearly every known species for reasons both strange and grave. The law of no approach had been in place for centuries now, a strict directive observed by all advanced civilizations: avoid direct contact with humans whenever possible. Do not provoke them, do not attempt to subdue them, and above all, do not engage in warfare. This law, the council leader reminded everyone, had not come into existence lightly. It had been established out of necessity, born from incidents of terrifying consequence. Initial contact with humans had left entire species shaken, entire planets bearing scars of brief yet brutal encounters. Humanity's capability for violence, their creativity in warfare, had stunned even the most advanced civilizations. They fought in ways that seemed chaotic to outsiders, leveraging their limited resources with frightening precision. When they couldn't rely on technology, they relied on wit. And when wit was not enough, they displayed an uncanny will to survive at any cost, using tactics other species could barely understand, let alone anticipate. In those early encounters, humanity's actions had been mistaken for barbarism. The council leader recounted the stories. A peaceful exploration mission from the Zarati Collective had wandered into a human territory, innocently transmitting greetings. The humans, unfamiliar with the Zarati language and mistaking the communication attempt as a threat, had responded immediately. Within hours, Zarati ships were surrounded and systematically dismantled, their crew fleeing back to their leaders with harrowing tales of human combat prowess. They described humans as relentless, cunning, and fearless, traits which many in the council still struggled to comprehend fully. To the Zarati, and others who had similar experiences, humanity was nothing short of a nightmare. Alien ambassadors across the hall began to share their own stories of humanity. A reptilian envoy from the Riga species spoke up, his scales twitching nervously. His people, known for their physical prowess, had once boasted they could defeat any enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Yet even they had been humbled by humans. It was the adaptability that caught us off guard, he admitted, recalling the time when human soldiers, outmatched and surrounded, had used everything around them as a weapon: stones, branches, even bits of their own armor. One moment they were on the defensive, the next they were relentless attackers. They shifted from strategy to strategy with such ease that we were overwhelmed. The stories continued, each more unsettling than the last. An insectoid ambassador from the Xtree described an encounter on a mining planet, where a small group of unarmed humans had managed to fend off a heavily armored squad by turning the very terrain against them, leading them into traps they had crafted with nothing but basic tools. They have a strange relationship with danger, the Xtree envoy whispered. Where we flee, they adapt. They exploit weakness with precision. We thought it was luck, but it happened too often to be chance. They seem to enjoy the challenge. To humans, these actions were simply survival tactics, solutions in the face of dire circumstances. To other species, they were terrifyingly unpredictable acts of aggression. The assemblage grew more uneasy as each representative shared tales of humans' ability to turn any situation, however desperate, to their advantage. Whether outnumbered or outgunned, humans exhibited a tenacity and ingenuity that others found difficult to replicate. What was merely survival for humans seemed to others as a form of madness, a reckless willpower that defied conventional logic. As more alien leaders spoke, a theme began to emerge: humanity did not approach conflict in the way others did. For most species, violence was a last resort, something only undertaken with full confidence of victory. But humans had an unsettling knack for making even certain defeats seem uncertain. They possessed an unmatched resilience, and a drive to keep fighting long after any sensible species would have surrendered. What they lack in technology, they make up for in sheer audacity, murmured an Aliarian, a species renowned for their technological prowess. They're masters of using their environment, bending the odds in ways that are unfathomable to us. The council leader spoke again, this time with a note of finality. This is why the law of no approach exists. Humanity's way of life is something we cannot comprehend or control. Where other species find peace in diplomacy and strength in unity, humans find strength in struggle, in testing their own limits. To us, it may seem barbaric, but to them, it is simply life. He paused, scanning the room. If they ever considered us a threat, they would meet it with strategies we could never predict and aggression we are not prepared to match. There was silence, the kind of silence that only comes with a dawning realization, with a deep, collective understanding. Each delegate recognized that humanity was not just another species. They were a phenomenon, one that other races could not predict, control, or defeat. Attempts to engage humans, to contain them or dominate them, had proven fruitless at best, catastrophic at worst. They were a species whose unpredictability made them as dangerous as they were intriguing. And so, the Council's decision stood unchallenged. The law of no approach remained, a tacit acknowledgement of humanity's unique place in the cosmos. They would be left alone, free to roam as they pleased, because no species wanted to be the one to test the full extent of human resilience. They were, as the law implied, best left unprovoked. And in that hall, as the delegates dispersed with uneasy glances and whispered reassurances, it was clear that every species present had reached a shared, unspoken understanding: humanity was dangerous, perhaps even unstoppable. A small exploratory mission of the chirolith, a peaceful, plant-like species known for their gentle manner and non-hostile approach to encounters, arrived on a rocky, forested planet in a distant system. They were sent to observe and report on new lifeforms, documenting flora and fauna while avoiding any direct interference. This mission had always been routine, and the crew was well versed in the protocols of peaceful observation. They had been scanning the area when they noticed a group of strange bipedal creatures gathering not far from their camp. The creatures were unlike any the chirolith had encountered before: sturdy, with 2 legs, 2 arms, and eyes that seemed intensely focused. They wore coverings over their bodies, primitive compared to the advanced protective layers the chirolith used, yet somehow practical, even formidable in appearance. The chirolith noted these creatures moved with purpose, conversing in ways they couldn't decipher, occasionally laughing in a loud, unsettling manner. One of the chirolith, a curious scout named Thren, approached the strange beings cautiously. It was standard protocol to offer a gesture of peace in any encounter, usually a hand extended, palm open. Thren raised a leafy limb, emulating what it understood as a respectful, open approach. But in doing so, it did not realize that its leaves shifted into a threatening display, mimicking an attack posture among the humans. The humans immediately grew tense, their eyes narrowing as they watched Thren's every move. The scout did not sense the danger that was mounting. What followed was a blur of action. Within moments, the humans, clearly alarmed, fell back into a tight formation, silently communicating with sharp gestures. One of them raised a metallic object, and Thren realized with sudden horror that these beings were not responding to peace, but to an assumed threat. Before it could retract its arm, the humans had already begun their counterattack. The response was swift, precise, and terrifying. With practiced ease, the humans surrounded Thren, moving in perfect sync with each other. One human, the apparent leader, barked an order. In seconds, they had identified the weaknesses in Thren's physiology. They struck with tools that seemed small but were brutally effective, targeting joints and delicate, vulnerable parts of Thren's plant-like form with an accuracy that stunned the chirolith. In mere moments, Thren was immobilized, and the humans began forming a defensive perimeter. From a distance, the rest of the chirolith watched in helpless horror. What they witnessed defied all logic. The humans fought as if they were an organic machine, shifting tactics and responding to each new movement the chirolith made. When 2 scouts attempted to retrieve Thren, the humans fell back into a well-organized formation, seamlessly covering one another. They never paused, never hesitated. Each movement seemed calculated, as if they had trained for this exact situation, despite never having seen the chirolith before. For the chirolith, such combat strategies were unfathomable. They had seen coordinated efforts before, But never anything like this. The humans communicated without words, their responses instantaneous. What looked like chaos to an outsider was, in reality, a masterfully choreographed defense. The humans adapted with each move the chirolith attempted, pushing them back with an efficiency that left the plant-like explorers completely overwhelmed. One of the humans barked out what seemed to be orders, and the others moved as one. The chirolith realized that the humans' entire formation shifted around the words of this leader, an authority they obeyed without question. When the chirolith finally managed to retreat, they returned to their vessel, shaken to their roots. There was a shared silence as they processed what they had just experienced. Thren, now stabilized but deeply shaken, recounted how, in that brief moment, it had felt the humans' intent, not one of malice, but of instinctual survival. They had treated the encounter as if their lives depended on it. And perhaps that was the most frightening part of all. These humans seemed to live on the very edge of danger, prepared at any moment to fight as if it were the last battle they would ever face. Once back at their home world, the chiroliths shared their experience with others. Word spread quickly through their alliance, tales of these humans who responded to even the smallest perceived threat with a coordinated, terrifyingly effective display of violence. It wasn't just the sheer force that frightened the chirolith, but the precision, their ability to assess, adapt, and overwhelm in mere seconds. They fight as if they know every weakness in their opponent, Thren explained in a trembling voice to the council. We never stood a chance, not because they wanted to harm us, but because they were ready to survive. They move with purpose, every action calculated. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Other peaceful races listening in on Thren's story were equally disturbed. How could such a race, one capable of both fierce aggression and incredible coordination, be approached safely? How could they ever expect to communicate with creatures so inherently prepared for conflict? The encounter became a cautionary tale across the galaxy. The chirolith's description of humans as relentless and efficient fighters spread, and even species with warrior backgrounds respected this account. What humans saw as mere self-defense, the chirolith and other species saw as nothing short of terrifying. There was no cruelty in the humans' actions, but there was a willingness to do whatever it took to protect their own, a response triggered by the smallest misunderstanding. And that made them all the more unpredictable. In time, the galaxy came to see that misunderstandings with humans could quickly escalate beyond reason, for humans had a way of responding to even unintended threats with unrestrained resolve. Other species took the tale as a warning, approached with caution, and never, ever assumed that a peaceful gesture would be understood as such. To the humans, each encounter held potential for danger, and to the galaxy, this instinctive vigilance made them a race like no other, a species that could, with just a perceived misstep, unleash the kind of force that even the most advanced civilizations struggled to understand. And thus, the reputation of humans grew, relentless, unpredictable, and governed by a drive to survive at any cost. The battle on Epsilon Theta had begun as a carefully planned assault. The coalition of alien forces, comprising several species known for their technological and tactical prowess, was confident in their advantage. They brought advanced weaponry, massive warships, and a meticulous strategy meant to subdue any opposition on the ground. On paper, the human forces stationed there were vastly outnumbered, their equipment inferior. The coalition command considered this an easy victory, a mere footnote in their broader campaign. Yet, as soon as they landed, they realized how thoroughly they had underestimated their opponents. At first, the battlefield seemed eerily quiet. Coalition forces spread across the rocky terrain, scanning the barren hills and sparse vegetation, searching for any sign of human presence. Then came the first strike, completely unexpected and surgically precise. Human forces didn't engage in a straightforward firefight. Instead, they used the terrain, turning the very landscape against their attackers. Hidden mines detonated underfoot, concealed traps snagged the legs of advancing soldiers, and snipers fired from invisible vantage points. The humans seemed to melt into the surroundings, appearing only long enough to strike before vanishing again. The alien commanders quickly realized that traditional tactics would be useless here. The humans didn't just defend, they waged psychological warfare. Rumors spread quickly through the coalition's ranks of humans who could appear out of nowhere, ghost-like, before cutting down entire squads. Coalition soldiers reported hearing strange sounds, whispers, footsteps that led nowhere, sudden echoes that disoriented them. Entire units would find themselves stranded, separated by diversions and ambushes set up with uncanny precision. Some aliens even claimed to see shapes moving in the dark, eyes glinting like animals, watching, waiting. The psychological toll was immediate and intense. The coalition had expected a predictable battle, but the humans fought like no enemy they had ever encountered. The coalition attempted to rally, trying to push forward with conventional tactics, but they couldn't adapt to the humans' relentless creativity. The humans didn't stay in one place. They used rapid repositioning, constantly forcing their opponents to recalibrate and reorient. Instead of relying on sheer firepower, they employed guerrilla tactics with an unnerving ruthlessness. One coalition unit, advancing along a ridge, suddenly found themselves cut off by a controlled landslide that obliterated their path of retreat. Another was lured into a canyon, where human forces, positioned above, launched makeshift explosives that rained down on them with devastating accuracy. Coalition soldiers, speaking after the battle, described the humans as shadows with sharp teeth, always at the edge of vision but never within reach. Their tactics defied all logic. Coalition strategists couldn't comprehend how human forces, so seemingly disorganized, could still manage to isolate, surround, and crush entire units. One captured alien soldier, trembling and wide-eyed, described the fear that spread through their ranks. They were everywhere and nowhere. We shot at shadows and ran from echoes. Every step was a trap. It felt like they were hunting us, not the other way around. Human forces employed tactics the coalition commanders dismissed as primitive, yet devastatingly effective. They used their limited ammunition sparingly, repurposing captured coalition gear, crafting crude yet functional weapons from debris, and even setting fires that forced the coalition troops into pre-planned ambushes. Coalition commanders watched helplessly as their forces were picked off, their soldiers' morale deteriorating rapidly. Reports of invisible human ambushes spread like wildfire, and many coalition soldiers, seasoned veterans of other wars, began to hesitate. These humans did not fight according to the rules of any conventional warfare they knew. By the time the coalition tried to regroup, it was too late. Human forces had strategically disabled their primary communication channels, leaving isolated pockets of alien soldiers stranded, forced to rely on signals and runners, a humiliating fallback for a technologically superior army. The humans, for their part, seemed to thrive in this chaos. Small human squads appeared suddenly, raiding supply lines, disabling transports, and setting timed explosives on coalition machinery. Coalition generals, desperate to regain control, attempted a full-scale assault, but the humans had anticipated this, drawing them into a narrow valley where ambush after ambush awaited. The coalition forces were torn apart, the valley echoing with the sounds of battle, confusion, and fear. When the dust finally settled, the coalition's forces were in ruins. What remained of their army limped off Epsilon Theta, defeated and forever haunted by the sheer unpredictability of the human enemy. Those who survived carried the tale of the humans' terrifying ingenuity and resilience back to their homeworlds. They described how humans had used every resource at their disposal, every scrap of land, every bit of salvage, twisting the environment and the coalition's own technology into weapons against them. Humans had turned the battlefield into their domain, transforming themselves from a small defending force into something unrelenting, almost supernatural. The outcome left an indelible mark on the coalition's psyche. Tales of Epsilon Theta became a cautionary tale, whispered across galaxies. The humans had been outgunned, outnumbered, yet they had claimed victory through sheer audacity and creativity. They were not bound by the conventions of battle. They reinvented it, weaponizing not just their environment but the very minds of their enemies. For the coalition, it was a lesson learned the hard way, that humans, when pressed, could fight with a ferocity and inventiveness beyond any simulation, any plan, and any expectation. In the end, Epsilon Theta was more than a battle. It was a revelation of what humans could do when pushed to their limits. For the Coalition, it was a humbling defeat that served as a grim reminder of the one unspoken truth: against humans, there was no such thing as an easy fight. As tales of humans and their startling capabilities traveled from one system to the next, they spread like wildfire. The story of Epsilon Theta alone was recounted at countless intergalactic ports, each version more exaggerated than the last. Eyewitnesses shared vivid accounts of human resilience and creativity, turning a simple battlefield encounter into a legendary tale of cunning and ruthlessness. Whispers grew into full-fledged stories, told by traveling traders, translated and retranslated across different languages until the humans seemed almost supernatural. What had begun as reports of tactical prowess transformed into chilling accounts of an unstoppable, fearsome species. In each society that heard these tales, reactions varied. The Ziliri, a species known for their aversion to violence, were horrified by the stories of human combat. To them, humans were monstrous, creatures driven by an insatiable urge to survive at any cost. Parents would recount tales of humans as cautionary bedtime stories, warning their young of the consequences of reckless curiosity or disrespecting boundaries. "Beware the silent lands," they'd say, referencing Epsilon Theta. "For that is where the humans thrive, where even the brave are swallowed by shadows." The Greylan, a warrior species with a strong sense of honor, were fascinated by humanity's unconventional approach to warfare. They had always valued direct combat, prizing strength and skill above all else. But the humans' ability to weaponize anything in their environment and adapt instantly to new threats intrigued them deeply. Among the Greylan, humans came to represent an ideal of strategic ingenuity. Some of their young warriors even adopted human tactics in their training, embracing unpredictability and learning to think outside of conventional doctrines. In Greylan academies, tales of human battles were recounted as examples of fighting spirit, brutal but undeniably effective. For others, the stories inspired admiration. The technologically advanced yet non-violent Varenth had always revered problem-solving, resilience, and intelligence. They were intrigued by humanity's adaptability and resourcefulness. "They are both destructive and creative," Varenth scholars would muse, analyzing accounts from survivors of Epsilon Theta. They spoke of humans with a mixture of respect and fascination, marveling at the ways humans transformed adversity into opportunity. Some Varenth even proposed peace envoys to try to learn more about this puzzling species, hoping to understand the psychological and cultural roots of their fighting spirit. At the heart of these spreading legends were tales of human endurance and unique instincts. Among all their strange behaviors, aliens found humans' survival instincts particularly bewildering. Numerous stories described humans who, despite severe injuries or overwhelming odds, continued to fight with an unwavering determination. One report from the Coalition forces on Epsilon Theta told of a human soldier, wounded and outnumbered, who held off an entire squad to protect a comrade. Even the Coalition's hardened warriors couldn't comprehend the depths of such dedication. Alien societies marveled at humans' ability to push through situations that would break others. They heard about humans enduring extreme temperatures, resisting severe wounds, and going without food or water for astonishing periods of time. Stories emerged of humans trekking for miles to rescue their own, carrying injured comrades on their backs even when escape seemed impossible. This fierce loyalty, this refusal to abandon each other, became part of human legend. In time, it wasn't just human strength that made aliens wary. It was the lengths to which they would go for each other, even when all odds were stacked against them. These accounts took on a life of their own, morphing as they spread, becoming the stuff of myths and folklore. Stories of humans capable of mind bonding, a misunderstood version of their camaraderie, spread among species unfamiliar with human social bonds. Some alien cultures began to believe that humans could sense each other's intentions in battle, making them even more difficult to fight. This notion was especially terrifying to species who relied on telepathy and assumed humans possessed a comparable power. The idea of humans seeing with the eyes of many began to circulate, feeding into an image of humans as a semi-mystical force, bound together by an unbreakable mental connection. Over generations, these stories evolved into more than just cautionary tales. They became embedded in alien cultural consciousness. Myths painted humans as both saviors and destroyers, creatures that embodied the duality of creation and destruction. Some saw them as instruments of cosmic balance, entities that appeared to defend the weak or punish the arrogant. Others revered them as avatars of survival and resilience. In regions that had never encountered humans directly, these tales became as fantastical as any ancient legend, and humanity took on an almost mythic status. It wasn't long before entire ceremonies and festivals centered around the mystery of humans. On distant planets, statues were erected in their honor, and prayers were offered both in fear and in reverence. The mere idea of encountering a human became a rite of passage for certain warriors and adventurers, who sought not to challenge them, but to prove their courage by merely standing in their presence. Even alien philosophers spoke of the human paradox, beings who could create and destroy with equal passion, masters of a realm few could understand. In the end, these stories shaped humanity's place in the galaxy's consciousness. They were unpredictable, dangerous, and fiercely loyal, a race best left unprovoked and yet revered by those who admired their tenacity. For aliens everywhere, humans became symbols of both war and resilience, a species that, through sheer will and adaptability, had turned themselves into the galaxy's most enigmatic and formidable beings. The chamber was filled with tension as the alien leaders assembled, representatives from dozens of species, each bearing the weight of their own people's experiences with humanity. Some had suffered losses, others held only second-hand fears, but all were united by one question: should the law forbidding contact with humans remain? The council's elder, a solemn member of the LHYRNO race known for their rationalism, opened the discussion. The law of no approach has shielded our civilizations from potential catastrophe, he began, his voice resonating through the hall. Humans are volatile, their capacity for destruction unparalleled. They turn every element, every fragment of their environment, into a weapon. Do we risk entangling ourselves with such a species? His words echoed sentiments shared by many. Humanity was simply too dangerous to be trusted. A coalition leader, scarred from her own experience with humans, nodded fervently. They are unpredictable. We've seen them tear through forces that outgun them, using only wit and ferocity. One minor misstep with them, one perceived insult, and our people pay the price in blood. She paused, looking around. They fight as though they are endless, as though no loss is too great. How can we understand a species with no fear of war? But not all were convinced. A young delegate from the Varenth, who had long advocated for cultural exchange and cooperation, raised his voice. Isolation is not a path to understanding. The stories we hear, yes, they are terrifying, but they're only fragments. We've witnessed only one side of humanity, the warrior side, but they are not only that. Reports show they are capable of immense compassion, cooperation, and resilience. Have we not condemned an entire species based on our fear? Silence followed his words, but murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The Varentha's argument highlighted an uncomfortable truth, that the Council's view of humanity was filtered through legends and wartime stories, tales that emphasized fear. Perhaps it was unjust to judge them solely as monsters or warriors. A philosopher from the Craven, known for their adherence to pacifism, joined in. Fear has never been a wise teacher. Have we not built this council on the principle of mutual understanding? The humans are undoubtedly complex. We've seen them overcome immense odds to survive, but they have a choice. If they can choose to fight for each other, what else might they be capable of choosing? The debate grew spirited. Arguments flew back and forth, some advocating that humanity should be approached with caution, others that the risks far outweighed the potential benefits. But a voice from the back interrupted, sharp and direct. It was a diplomat from the Ziliri, a species deeply shaken by stories of human brutality. You call them complex. Perhaps they are. But complexity is no defense against destruction. What if we reach out, only for them to lash out as they did on Epsilon Theta? What if they simply don't see the galaxy as we do? The council fell quiet again, acknowledging this point. Humanity's very nature was a paradox, a species capable of tenderness yet driven by a fierce instinct to survive, by whatever means necessary. The craven philosopher, whose people revered life in all its forms, spoke up once more. I don't deny the danger. But we cannot ignore that this same species, as brutal as they may seem, has also shown incredible compassion among themselves. They do not abandon each other. They fight for one another. If such loyalty exists within them, can we not consider that they might one day extend it beyond themselves? A pause lingered as the council considered this perspective, grappling with the reality of humans as both brutal and compassionate, capable of both destruction and protection. The elder cleared his throat. This is the dilemma that defines them. They wage war with frightening effectiveness, yet they protect each other with unmatched loyalty. Perhaps it is this very duality that makes them both a threat and perhaps an ally. The Varent delegate, encouraged by this, suggested a compromise. Let us not break the law entirely, but we could consider observing them further, perhaps sending envoys trained to understand their ways. Let us explore their world cautiously and begin to unravel what lies beyond the tales of Epsilon Theta. The Ziliri representative shook her head, skeptical. They could interpret such an approach as an invasion. If we give them any reason to feel threatened, they will respond with the same ferocity. We cannot underestimate their survival instincts. The elder raised a hand to signal the debate's close. The decision would have to be unanimous. Finally, he spoke. The law of no approach has served to keep the peace, and we have survived because of it. However, we cannot be blind to the possibility that this very law, built on fear, could rob us of knowledge, perhaps even understanding, that could benefit us all. Humanity is a species that defies simple definitions. To engage them would be to risk everything. To avoid them completely may lead to other dangers. After a moment's silence, the elder continued. Let us maintain the law of no approach, with one amendment, a council-appointed observation initiative. No engagement, no contact. Simply watch, learn, and try to understand. The motion was seconded by the craven philosopher, whose people had always advocated for learning before judgment. Other representatives agreed, acknowledging this as the safest middle ground, a way to uphold caution while keeping the door open, should the galaxy ever find a reason to revise its stance. For the humans, that would mean they remained alone in the galaxy, at least for now. But the legends and the cautious observation would continue, shaping both the myths and the future decisions of the Intergalactic Council. And so, with the stroke of the Council's seal, the law was amended. Humanity remained an enigma, equal parts awe-inspiring and terrifying, a force of nature that the galaxy would watch from a safe distance. For now, they would be left undisturbed, but every council member knew that one day, the galaxy might be forced to confront them again.